A very good morning, good afternoon, good evening to everyone. And thank you for joining us. Thank you for making time. This is the Telerik R2 2022 release webinar. And it's the first of three big webinars we are doing this week. We had a big release go out last week. So we are here to just unpack all the things that our engineering teams put together. So this will be focused on just the Telerik side of the family, and then we'll go into plans for the rest of the week. So let us get started. So we are your hosts for the day. I'm Sam Basu, and with me I have my good friend Ed.
Hey.
Hello, hello. So yeah, while you see me and Ed on stream today, there are a lot of folks from our teams who are in the back channels, ready to answer questions and support us. We do stand on the shoulder of giants for every release. All of our team members who put together all the love that goes into every release. So we are here to kind of unpack. So if you need to get hold of me or Ed after the webinar, that's pretty much our social handles everywhere. So it's almost summertime for most parts of the world. We want you to be successful, be done shipping your projects, and maybe go out on vacation. So we are here to do our little bit to get you a little bit more productive and successful. Now this is stuff that's already happened. In case you haven't noticed or hadn't joined us, we are big on Twitch, live streaming as we code, and we started this last Thursday and Friday. And also, like yesterday, we get some of our engineering folks to come and join us, and we kind of informally go over all the little roadblocks and all the love and that engineering puts into every release. So this has already happened, and we do put the videos out on YouTube. But if you want to come and join us anytime, before the releases or after, please feel free to come and join us on Twitch. But here's the plan for this week, right? So this is Tuesday, May 17th. Today is all things .NET, right? So Ed and me are, primarily .NET developers, who are, Ed's on a Windows, I'm on Mac and Windows a little bit. So we're going to talk about all things web, mobile, and desktop as they relate to .NET developers. Coming up tomorrow, you're going to see the rest of our team get together for all things JavaScript, which is all things Angular, React, jQuery, Vue, however you are writing your modern web apps with JavaScript. And then we come back on Thursday to talk about everything else that you need to support enterprise workflows, things like reporting solutions, automation testing solutions, network profiling with Fiddler, and mocktail solutions with JustMock. So we are dedicating a whole webinar just for productivity. You need these things to ship enterprise line of business apps. So let's talk about what we are going to unpack today. If for some reason your connection drops, or if you have a meeting, don't worry, we are recording this all in high def, and we'll put this out on YouTube. If you have questions, like you're spending an hour or 2 hours of your day with us, which is precious to us, and we thank you for that. But utilize the time to ask us any questions. There is a Q&A panel in the webinar window where we will try to answer as many questions as we can as we go along. If you would rather have a discussion or leave like a breadcrumb trail, and if you're on Twitter, go ask us questions on Twitter using the hashtag #HeyTelerik, so we can get back to you after this. Now, this release actually went out last Wednesday, I think, May 11th, and this was a big release. So we do 3 big releases a year: R1, R2, and R3. R1 was end of January or mid-January, so we have had 4 solid months, and at summertime we really tried to pack everything we could into this release. So it's a lot to unpack, and if you are caring about specific products that you are using, then head out to our blogs, telerik.com. Every product team takes the time to write up exactly what's new in that product, but also take time to look around. A lot of you folks have DevCraft. If you are an existing DevCraft user, we thank you for your patronage and support. But if you're new, it's a lot that we offer in the family. So look around and see what else applies to what else you're doing. So as we talk about .NET today, I do want to just mention in one slide, this is a Microsoft slide which you may have seen. A lot of things we do are riding on top of .NET, especially on the Telerik side of the family. And as you know, modern .NET is really cross-platform, it's open source, and it does a lot of different things across not just web, desktop, and mobile, but also for gaming and IoT and AI. And the tools of our trade have come a long way. You're going to see us do all things latest and greatest on top of .NET Framework, .NET Core 3.1, 5, 6, and now also moving forward and future-facing into .NET 7. You're going to see us support things that are bleeding edge as well. So we are proud to stand on top of .NET. So everything we do cover today, they're already out. So however you get our bits, go get them, because otherwise you're not going to see some of the things light up that Ed and me are here to show you. However you get them from the downloads directory, get them from the control panel, or straight up NuGet packages or npm packages. However you get the latest bits, we hope that you update to the latest release. Now, we try to say that we, genuinely put in a lot of effort in every one of these things. This release is a little special, and I'll let Ed show you off here as he starts talking about the web. There's a little bit of love we put into docs that's really near and dear to our heart, and we feel that it makes everybody a little bit more productive, particularly late at night when you're having to look things up. So I'll let Ed give you that surprise. But all of the stuff that we show off, they are all on demos.telerik.com. The web stuff you can pretty much run in your browser. Some of the native stuff you have to download onto your devices and then run it. And we're always listening. The roadmaps that we do, the bugs that we fix, they're all based on your feedback. So you utilize the tickets, utilize the feedback channels to keep telling our teams what else we need to work on. All right, so like 5 minutes in, I think you're all here to hear about the web and how we do things. So Ed's going to do like an hour of all things web with Blazor and ASP.NET MVC and WebForms and Razor views and all the web things, and then I take over for mobile and desktop in the second hour. But before we go to Ed, how about we do a little bit of a quick poll? We want to keep this interactive for all of you all. We want to know where you are at in your journey with your apps. So if you are building web apps today on the .NET stack, what are you using? Is it Blazor? Because that's a lot of what .NET developers are excited about. Is it MVC? Is it Core? Is it WebForms? Or none of the above? Are you doing something completely off the charts? And I mean, this doesn't, of course, include JavaScript. That's fine to say none. But on the .NET stack, what are you using? Because I'm sure Ed is curious. All right, so going once, going twice, going thrice, and that's it. Let's take a quick look. Oh, look at that! This is going to make Ed very happy because it's a lot of Blazor. Okay, this is good to know. But the present reality is a lot of enterprises and a lot of apps have moved over to Blazor, but MVC and Core are also production reality, and WebForms isn't going away anywhere. So we are glad to see a nice mix here.
Absolutely.
All right. Yeah. So with that, how about I hand things over to Ed to take you through all of the web goodness. So let me find Ed here in my list. And there you go, Ed. Now you should be the presenter.
All right, little delay on the WebEx part, but I finally got it. All right, so we're going to talk about all things web in the context of .NET and our Telerik UI components. So that means we're going to talk about our brand new theme that we have for all of our .NET code. Sorry, I've got a nag screen that keeps popping up here. Can't see what I'm doing. There we go. We have a new theme for a lot of our products. Then we'll talk about UI for ASP.NET AJAX. Then we'll move on to MVC and Core. A lot of those things overlap, so we'll kind of combine those together. And then everybody's favorite is UI for Blazor, and we'll talk about some new components we have there. And then finally, we'll wrap things up with a new addition. We released this in our last major release, but it's definitely worth mentioning again because there's a lot of updates going on with our Telerik REPLs. We have a REPL for Blazor and a REPL for Core. Got some really cool stuff to share with that. And first off, we'll talk about the new theme. And the new theme applies to all of our Kendo UI products, as well as UI for MVC, Core, and Blazor. So the only one that's really not listed here is the AJAX components. And I think it's because we have so many themes for the AJAX components already. This is brand new for our younger generation of tools. This is the Ocean Blue theme. And what makes the Ocean Blue theme special is it is accessibility compliant. So those colors that we chose for this theme, we made sure those contrast ratios are perfect for accessibility needs. There's a lot of users out there that have color issues and things like that they need these nice contrasts to be able to see components. The Ocean Blue theme not only looks great, it'll help you with that accessibility compliance. Let's talk a little bit about Telerik UI for AJAX. Can you believe, Sam, this is our 110th release of our Telerik UI for AJAX library? It's pretty crazy. This thing's been around for almost 20 years, it feels like. And yeah, it's as you saw in the poll, we still have people developing with it, creating new projects on it. It's one of those things that it's super productive. So there, it's tried and true, very stable, and people really can build some amazing things with Telerik UI for AJAX. So it's here to stay, and it has new components as well. So you may have seen a similar experience in our wizard component. This is our stepper component, and this is so you can build your own custom stepwise processes and forms in Telerik UI for AJAX. Super handy tool to have in your toolbox. So that's brand new. We've also improved our grid sorting icons. We've made it more apparent when things are not being sorted or they're being sorted ascending, descending. So new icons in that column there. And as always, accessibility is a focus, as you've seen already with our new theme. This is something that we are dedicated to. So we have accessibility improvements across our Telerik UI for AJAX library as well. And there's some really cool features in the data viz components as well. So I'm going to jump over to the web for just a moment and show you what some of these new features are. So let's start off. We're on demos.telerik.com. I am on the Telerik UI for AJAX product page. And you'll see some nice green badges here that indicate there's some new stuff to look at. Let's go ahead and take a look at that stepper. And the stepper, it's an interactive, you can interact with the UI, and you can also programmatically change these values. And then we also have the ability to enable and disable these. So if you have some sort of validation that's happening and you need to block the user from moving to the next step, you can do that as well. Accessibility was kept in mind here, built-in icons. You can totally customize the appearance if you want to. There's also different orientation layouts, so you can go horizontal or vertical with this. This is great if you're, for example, you have an app that is both mobile and desktop. You can toggle these views depending on what device your users are on. So that's super handy. So it's overall just a well thought out stepper component that you can use in your applications. So we'll jump back over to the main demo page again, and let's focus on charts. So we've got some nice additions to our charts here as well. As far as functionality goes, we've got a brand new series notes feature, so you can add additional metadata to points in your series charts and other charts. So you can see we've got a ton of different ways to modify these series note properties as well. So you can take full advantage of the look and feel of those notes and how they appear. So no detail left behind in this new feature. Right. So again, we're super proud of our Telerik UI for AJAX. Again, 110th release. That's a super huge milestone for us. And we're glad to see that people are still excited about it. Next, I'm going to move on to Telerik UI for MVC and ASP.NET Core. And again, I try to combine these a little bit. There's a bit of overlap here between the components and their features for these two frameworks. And both of those have gotten some new color pickers and the circular progress bar. There's multiple color pickers. They're different ones for different needs. We have a color palette color picker. We have a flat color picker and a gradient color picker. So you can choose the right one for your specific need. We'll look at some demos of those in a minute. And there's also this really nice contrast tool that is built into the gradient color picker as well to ensure that if you give users ability to choose colors, that you're queuing them into the accessibility of those colors. So we'll take a look at that as well. There's also been quite a few updates. So in addition to new components, we've got a bunch of updates to existing components for MVC and Core. One of the things that users ask for is the ability to change the size of a spreadsheet component on the fly at runtime. So we have the ability to do that. The tree view component has a new event to tell you when its load has completed. Again, accessibility improvements across the board. On our ASP.NET Core menu component, our MVC component already had this feature, but we've added it to Core as well. Security trimming and for authorization on the menu. So say you have a menu on your website, that menu has routes that are hidden for, or should be hidden for authorized users. The menu will now take into account that authorization, and if the user is not authorized to visit those routes, it will hide them from view of the users that shouldn't be able to see them. So that is brand new with MVC Core. We've also updated our VPAT document. So this is our voluntary accessibility documentation. So that has been updated for the product as well. So let's take a look at some of these new things that we've got with Telerik UI for MVC and Core. Jump back over to our browser, and we are on the demos.telerik.com page focused on the Telerik UI for Core right now. So we can take a look at some of the new color pickers that we have. So we have the gradient color picker. I love some of these demos, by the way. Our team did a fantastic job coming up with some real world scenarios here. So when I choose the color in our gradient color picker down here, you'll notice that our bike up top changes color along with it. So some nice data binding happening there. It's a really slick demo. And of course, if you want to take this demo and run with it, you can always come up to the button here in the demos and say edit in Telerik REPL. Just click on that button, and not sure why I'm getting the notification here, but we should be able, I'm getting a certificate problem or something. Let's try this again. Should be able to just jump into that. Not sure why we're not launching directly. There it goes. All right, so it looks like my browser may have not cached something properly. So there's our demo that we just saw on demos.telerik.com. Now we can jump in here and actually change some of the code in real time and kind of tailor this to maybe something we want to copy and paste into our own application and so on. So we can see exactly how this works. We're using some HTML helpers here to generate our color gradient, and then we're using a little bit of JavaScript here to write back that value to our image. And there's our gradient color picker. Like I said, there's multiple color pickers here. Sam, did you have something?
Yeah, and while you were showing off the REPL, I just thought I would read a comment here from the chat room. Diana Boone said, whoever had the idea of the REPL should get a huge bonus. And it is a team effort, but it was started by Chris Marianoff, and who is actually in the back room. So Chris, take note. But Diana goes on to say that it's really nice, for you to try out controls, not just here for MVC, but like also for Blazor. And it is really nice where you don't have to open up anything, install anything. You just have your dependencies and off you go.
Oh, just wait. I've got some announcements that are still to be announced at the end here. We'll show some real cool stuff with the Telerik REPL for Blazor. Just looking at some more of the color pickers here, I said there were multiple for different reasons. We saw the gradient color picker. You kind of have like all the colors of the rainbow available. What if you have something that's more product specific? You want to give just a specific set of colors for your user to pick from. And that is what our color palette color picker is for. So again, very intuitive example here, but this shows you exactly how you can streamline those color choices so you don't have the user with a full gambit of colors to choose from. They just have maybe some product colors that apply to what you're doing. Again, these are super great for custom reporting and stuff like that as well. So if you have like widgets that you're reporting on, you want your users to be able to choose colors for, that's also a very common use there. Then we have the flat color picker. This one comes with a little bit more tooling around the gradient here. So we have additional controls where we can modify how those color choices are applied. And then I was talking about the contrast tool, and this is really nice because, again, if you're letting users choose these colors, and if they're going to be displayed, you're using these colors to drive some type of custom UI in your application, you want to make sure those things are accessible. So as I drag the color around here, you'll see that we have accessibility tests failing or passing as we cross these color contrast thresholds here. So with a little bit of user education and the ability to just bake this into your application, you can make sure that when users are choosing their colors, that they are in fact passing the accessibility tests, and all users will be able to read any of the text that is applied to that UI component. And then, of course, our spreadsheet got updated, and we get a lot of feedback on our feedback portal at feedback.telerik.com. Feel free to go there and leave us messages and upvote issues that you want to see you want to see us make changes to in the product. So this is one that was very popular, is our spreadsheet resize. So users want to be able to resize the actual spreadsheet in real time. So we can actually take this spreadsheet down to a 4x5, minimize that to just a few rows, or we could bump this up to say a 40x50 just by applying those values there. You can see the spreadsheet just immediately changes in real time. All right, good stuff. Somehow I got off my slides here. Sorry about that. Let's talk a little bit about what's new in Telerik UI for Blazor. So Telerik UI for Blazor, we've got a ton of stuff to cover. So hopefully I don't run over Sam's time. Just kidding, Sam. I'm not going to do that to you again. We've got a lot of stuff to chat about, though. We've got a brand new file manager. This is a really cool component. We'll take a little bit more of a deep dive into in a moment. But it essentially gives you that OS type of file chooser look and feel for your application, so you can customize that. We have the new filter UI. This is awesome for like ad hoc reporting. We also have a floating label on our input components. So it gives you a little bit more real estate, a little bit more intuitive to use your input components with the label that's overlaid on top. The split button component, I've got some good demos of that as well. So we'll kind of dive into all of those in a second. Our data grid is by far one of our most popular components. So there are a lot of new updates there. So these are all specific to the Telerik UI for Blazor data grid. We have the ability to customize default filters. We have a debounce delay property on our filter row. We'll talk a little bit more about debounce delay in a minute. This is something that we've added to all of our input components, and we actually had a question out of the gates for this. Somebody's asking if we have the debounce delay for our text area. Yes, we do. We'll chat about that in a minute too. We've got custom filters in the editor, or custom editors in the filters, custom pop-up settings. We can modify our search box and placeholders. And there's also a brand new rebind method that helps folks were asking for this. If there are some changes outside of the grid, you want to just refresh the data on that grid. There is a rebind method that you can now call and tell the grid to go ahead and rebind its data and refresh the grid. Another one of our very popular components is our Gantt component. This is a very intricate component with a lot of moving pieces, and it's gotten a lot of updates as well. So one of the big features here is editing. So we have pop-up editing and inline editing right there in the Gantt chart. This is super cool. You can also customize content inside of the Gantt's tree list and headers. There is a zoom to fit option to help you, condense that UI down to the scope of where you're looking. You can set the editor types, customize the pop-ups when you're editing, customize date time formats in the headers. And again, there's that debounce delay property on our filters. Lots of new events as well. So we have on edit, on expand, and on collapse events that have been added to the Gantt component. And even more updates. We've been talking about this debounce delay. We haven't quite gotten into exactly what it is yet, but all of the input components now have this debounce delay parameter. What this does is when you're typing into an input, for example, you may be going out to a database and getting some data you're filtering based on what the user's typing, or maybe you're just using server-side Blazor and there's some WebSocket information that's being transferred as you type. What the debounce delay parameter does is it lets you set a delay as to when the user stops typing to go ahead and execute the event. So in this example here, as the person types, there's a slight pause when they're done typing out the word that they're looking for, and you can control when that event occurs. So what happens is you could set this very low. As the user types, the API is getting hit, or their database is getting hit, or the WebSockets are getting filled up, because with each keystroke, there is a request back to the server. So you can go ahead and bump that debounce delay up higher and give the user a little bit more time to pause between keystrokes before that event triggers. And that can save you a lot of bandwidth, a lot of WebSocket requests and latency. So that debounce delay parameter is on all of our input types. And whenever you see inputs inside of other Telerik components, like our data grid and our Gantt, especially on filtering, you'll see that debounce delay parameter there as well.
This is very good.
Yeah.
So I was going to say, like Diana Boone again in the chat room was asking the same question. Is there a list of controls which have this debounce parameter? So you're saying all input controls have it now?
Yeah. So all input components have this, and then also we don't have a specific list that I'm aware of that we don't really categorize components by a property that they have, but you can use the search feature here in our documentation. And you can just type in the name of the parameter and hit search, and it will come up with all of the components that have that debounce delay feature in it. So it's kind of an ad hoc way to go get that data that you were looking for, which is a list of components that have this feature. So there you have it in the documentation. There's quite a bit of instances of that debounce delay being used. Like I said, these kind of get inherited to other larger components that use the inputs themselves for the more complex UI components that we offer. While I'm on the documentation page, you'll notice that it's in a nice dark mode here, Sam. This is Sam and I are light mode, dark mode folks. So Sam's on the light side, and I'm on the dark side. So maybe Darth Vader's my father, but I like the dark side. Sam, I know you like the light side.
I like it too. It's actually dark mode, especially when we talk about mobile interfaces. It is good for accessibility, and it's particularly good at night, easier on your eyes. When I'm demoing something during the day, I prefer my light mode in Visual Studio, but more power to the users if you can switch.
It's also more environmentally friendly, believe it or not. You don't have to render all those white pixels. Maybe
Yes.
Trivial, but it does add up, especially if you're on a mobile device. It can burn through your battery quick if you have your brightness jacked up and you're on a light mode screen. So there is a button up here in the right-hand corner. I was trying to zoom, my zoom tool, there it goes, right here, that you can click on. And I don't know how to erase. This must be a, there we go. Thank you, GoToMeeting. There is a toggle button up here at the top that lets you switch between light mode and dark mode on the documentation. So I absolutely love this. So I like being able to have that dark mode, especially like you said, Sam, when it's dark. It's nighttime, or maybe I just have all the shades drawn in my office. We also have some responsive and adaptive behaviors on our pager and toolbar components. This helps with mobile friendly applications using Blazor. I'll show some of that as well. Our TabStrip feature fits into that category as well with the scrollable tabs. So if you have multiple tabs, they span too much of a horizontal distance on the screen, you can go ahead and combine those or put those in a scrollable interface. Our data visualization components also have updated with this new plot band feature, and this can be horizontal or vertical, but this is a nice way of showing maybe a zone you're trying to hit or avoid with your data. I'm sure your financial services folks will love this feature, so that has been added to the charts as well. Windows are now resizable. Our editor component has new table and image resizing tools in it and video nesting tags. We also have localization support in our Visual Studio project templates. So you can get started with a project that has localization built in. That's really nice to have. That's a difficult task to manage. And then we also offer signed NuGet packages for Blazor. So that's something that's brand new in this release. So you can get those signed NuGet packages for your application. So let's dive into some of the stuff that we kind of glanced over here and get a better look at what we have to offer. So first, let's take a look at some of the charts. We have these vertical and horizontal bands that we can now highlight inside of our charts. These, again, super handy for showing and emphasizing data inside of our charting components. So that's a nice feature and something that was requested by users. So you can see more plot bands here. Again, you can control horizontal or vertical where these land on the chart by using the chart category axis plot band and value plot band tags in your charts. We also have the FileManager component. So the FileManager component, this is a really complex UI component that would take me forever to build. And now you can just add this with a simple tag and wire up some data sources. So you bring in your Telerik FileManager, and then you can set some of your data parameters here. Where am I going to get this data from? What's the file name field? Where's the path, etc. And what's nice here is this data source, it doesn't literally have to be a file system. This could be anything that you can translate into a file system interface. So, maybe you have some sort of back office you're building, and there's lots of documents that you're building inside of a database. Maybe you're using your editor to create, a lot of documentation somewhere. You want to manage this data the same way you would as if they were files on a desktop, and you can do that with the Blazor File Manager. There's also a built-in upload component inside of there. You can view a tree or hierarchy. You can also toggle whether you want to see details, detail panel on these as well. There's list views, large icon views. This is very much like your desktop experience that you have for a file manager. You'll even see there is a breadcrumb path on there as well. So it's very well thought out, very detailed, and you can of course customize this as you see fit. You can use flat data to represent your file system, hierarchy data. We have events that you can trigger from whether you're expanding and viewing items in the list. We also support localization. And I also want to point out here, this is an excellent reuse of some existing components that were already in the library. So if we take a look, we have a brand new component here that you can use individually outside of the file manager. So this is our split button actually being used here. So the split button is kind of like a miniature menu that's going to perform very similar tasks and group those tasks under one button. So we have a sort by feature here, and you can change the value of your sorting just by clicking the split button. And that is actually one of our brand new components. So if we go back to our main component page here, we have our split button, and you can use the split button in your application. So the file manager had an excellent example of this, and this is a good one too. So maybe you have a couple different types of pasting abilities in your app. You can combine all of those into one little mini menu under a split button. So that is brand new in this release. I wanted to talk about our data, our debounce delay property as well. So our combo box and all of our other input components, they have the input delay, and I have the wrong example up here. We saw a pretty good example of it earlier. As we type, we have the list pop up. We can control those debounce values as well. The TabStrip. We have the scrollable tabs now in the TabStrip. So if you're going to represent this on a mobile device, or maybe this piece of UI exists in a dashboard or something where you don't have a lot of real estate to show all of your tabs, you can easily scroll through those tabs left and right here. So you can enable that on your TabStrip. And again, if you want to edit this and check it out in Telerik REPL, you can go ahead and click on the button, jump right into Telerik REPL for Blazor, and see how that tab, that scrolling tab strip was built. You have a field up here. You could go ahead and change that to false, and you can see the difference between our scrollable tabs and with that feature turned off. And there we go. As you can see, we don't have a lot of real estate for those tabs, so they end up getting stacked if we don't have that feature enabled. So it's a little bit of a nicer UI. If we go ahead and turn that scrollable feature back on, then we can tab through or scroll through those tabs nice and smooth. It's really nice to be able to just open up these demos and kind of hack away at them and see how they work. It's nice, like kind of educational thing, and you can also bring those, copy that code and bring that back into your application. Speaking
also,
of,
Ed likes to point these things out, so then he can make me jealous, because there's a lot more drama when you build native apps for, for mobile or desktop, but it's just so easy for web apps to just run in the REPL.
Absolutely. The web is a magical place where you can learn things very quickly, because you can demo stuff right there live in the browser, and that's an experience that's hard to match in other places. One of the things that we're focusing on here is, again, with the tab strips, is our adaptive behaviors. So if you're on a smaller device, maybe you're running out of real estate for all of these things in this toolbar, just like we did with the tabs, we want to be able to offer a UI that's better for the person that's on that mobile device. So I'm going to kind of simulate that device being smaller by changing this scroll bar here. You'll notice these items are just disappearing off my list of TabStrip items, and the browser, or one of the there it goes. I'm getting a little bit of latency or something from the webinar, but you collapse this all the way down, and our toolbar items have now been hidden under this kebab or ellipsis menu, and you can see they're all stacked nicely here, so we can access those easier. And as the UI expands, those items come back. Now, you'll notice that certain items appear and disappear kind of in a very specific way. And what's happening here is there are properties that are enabling. Boy, Chrome is not happy with me today. I cannot click on anything. All right, this is fun during a live show. It's got a mind of its own, folks. Doing my best. Let's go ahead and kick this off in Telerik REPL, and you'll see there's some properties at play here. And there is an overflow property, and I like that when I highlight it, we can see it over here as well. But what it does is it tells the toolbar when to overflow that. So we actually have an image toolbar button that's always inside of that hidden menu. And then we have also some items that are never put away inside of that drawer menu. So you can control when this happens, and that's a very handy way to kind of choose the best user interface for the people that are using your app. So you don't hide things that are used most frequently from your users just because they're on mobile. So you can offer the best experience there by enabling the things that people use most, and then putting the less essentials inside of the menu here. We also have a similar behavior in our pager, which you'll see the same pager inside of our data grid. As we scroll this interface down in our browser, you'll see that the numbers in the box here, it's not letting me minimize it enough to make this happen. If you go small enough, you'll get a drop-down box here. Trust me on that one. I think my screen resolution won't let me do that, but you'll end up getting a drop-down box for these items instead of a full list of pages. The filter is a brand new component, the Blazor filter. This lets you do ad hoc filtering of data. It does not have to be tied to a data grid. You can choose any type of output that you would like here, but the focus here is the fact that we can add filters and customize the filtering of data just with this filter component itself. And we can add and remove items from the filtering. We can change their logical operators. We can add new things to the filter query here. We can add grouping and so on. And the code for getting this to work on your data set is actually pretty intuitive as well. If we look in here, we're using what is called the Telerik data source request object. And what this will do, there it is, our data source request gets sent to the server, there is a server-side API that you can call. It's an extension method that will apply that data source request to Entity Framework, and Entity Framework can easily digest those filter descriptors and map that to your data set and build a query off of that data. So you don't have to write a bunch of custom logic if you're using Entity Framework. You can call the to data source results method on that, and it will filter the data for you. So that is awesome. The data source request object is something that I absolutely love and have used. We've had that in our Telerik UI for MVC and ASP.NET Core components as well. That's used with our data grids and tree lists to do data filtering. So you can do that with just the filters now and choose the UI representation that you want. That's a really cool component. This was from our Q&A earlier. Somebody was asking if we had our debounce delay. Debounce delay is in fact part of our text area component and all of our input components. And then let's wrap up. We saw a little bit of Telerik REPL for Blazor. This lets you run code in the browser, share code right in the browser. This is a very helpful tool at troubleshooting things or trying out new components, just sharing ideas with people. I'm a huge fan of this, and it looks like we had a couple folks in chat that were excited about it as well. There are some new improvements here too that I'd like to show very quickly. I'm running short on time here. If you go to blazorrepl.telerik.com, there is a new set of buttons here. So we've always had the ability to add NuGet packages, manage static assets. You can try out all of our Telerik components here in Telerik REPL for Blazor and change themes. You can see that we're on the newest version of those components. If you really want to check out these components, you can click on this new item here. On the bottom, you'll see I have a snippets and scaffolding menu item, and we can even pin that here. And you can either click these buttons or you can actually drag and drop these. So Sam, let's say we wanted to make a barcode. We could go ahead and drag and drop that barcode onto our design surface here. And then we just need to wire up a value for that barcode. So we might say something like a string value equals hello world. And we should be able to just run that there. And oops, my code needs to be complete before that'll work. And now we have a, I'm doing something incorrect, but let's try that one more time. And that's a demo fail for me. So I may have fat fingered that one. I might need an integer value here. Maybe I'm doing the wrong type of data here. Let's try. No, I can't do that either. So we won't troubleshoot that live, but the idea here is we can just add things to our editor here just by either dragging, dropping, or adding. Let's add a Telerik window here. We'll go ahead and set our visible value to true, and we should be able to just display an editor window just by, okay. I'm definitely having some sort of browser issues today, I think, because it keeps freezing on me, and now I'm getting this type of weird behavior. But we do have, it'd probably help if I had some window content, maybe.
Yeah, Chrome isn't happy with you today.
Yeah, the demo gods are not happy. So no, it's, let's see, bind visible true should be just visible true, maybe. There we go. So if I just knew how to code, it would work. So you can see this is a new behavior here. This is a new feature with our window component, is we can actually drag the handles here and resize this window. That is set by our draggable property here. So if I were to set this to false and spell it correctly, you can see that that feature can be enabled and disabled. Oh, sorry, that's draggable. I wanted resizable. You can turn off resizing if you set that to false. I can no longer drag the window around. But this new scaffolding tool is now part of the Telerik REPL for Blazor, and it goes beyond that too. If you see the little gear, we actually have some scaffolding that you can do. You could put data sources in everything and scaffold out a grid component right here in the browser. So that is super cool. So go ahead and jump out of that. If you want to get some additional scaffolding and snippet tools for your editor, like Blazor REPL has, you can install our plugins from the Visual Studio and Visual Studio Code Marketplace. Visual Studio Code has scaffolders and snippets built in now. So if you're doing ASP.NET Core or Blazor, you can install these and you'll get a nice context menu. We could take a quick look at that. And we'll make this really short and simple here, Sam. I know people are getting ready to hear about MAUI, but if you wanted to do some simple snippets, you could say TB for Telerik Blazor and then say, I want a data grid, and then I'll select that data grid from the list. And there is a snippet of a data grid to go ahead and get started. If you want to take this a step further, get a little bit extra help with scaffolding that out, we won't save that guy. I'm going to come down to my client project and get my CS proj file here and right click on it. And you'll see when I right click on my CS proj file, I've got a new Telerik UI for Blazor project item. So if I click on that, I've got this nice wizard here that lets me scaffold out things for my UI. So I could come in here and I've got a page that I'm going to create called a Telerik grid page. We'll go ahead and just leave that for sample purposes. I could set up a specific model to bind to. So in here, I've got, let's see, I've got a podcast view model. We'll go ahead and add that to it. And then let's see, do we have a service that we can pull some data from? We'll go ahead and grab the dashboard data service from our application and get some data from that. And I have a get podcasts method on that data service I want to call when I'm reading data. Go ahead and click create on that. It's going to get me most of the way there. I've got a few places I want to clean up because I'm not using some of these methods here. So I'm not using my update, create, and delete methods on that. Let's see, I may have typed this wrong by error here. Let's just double check their service real quick. Get podcasts is an IEnumerable. I think we just have the wrong data type here. And that should probably do it. Yeah, go ahead, Control F5. And that page is now built with a Telerik data grid. And if I navigate over to Telerik grid page, you could see there is my data grid that I just scaffolded out with just a few keystrokes there. So I could go back and add those CRUD operations to it and keep developing this data grid. But that gave me a nice starting point with a very simple UI inside of Visual Studio Code. So that's going to shorten up my development time for sure. So those are our new additions that you can go to the Visual Studio Marketplace and grab. We also are compatible with the latest version of .NET 7 Preview 4, so go ahead and check that out. I also want to mention our DPL or document processing libraries have been updated again. We add to these every time we have a release as well, and we have new insert and delete comments and spreadsheet processing. There's cell references when referencing a column of cells or a whole column in a spreadsheet. support for Type 3 fonts, and there's some new demos up on the website as well. So Sam, I know we are getting close to time here for you. So I'm going to go ahead and give you the floor and answer some questions as we transfer it over.
Why don't you stay on Blazor, because we got a few questions or comments to maybe read through. So let's see. Victoria Steele was saying, glad for the FileManager component, because you have a lot of simple pages on the intranet side that I just want to view the files in the network location. So, and like you said, it's not just about files. And I mean, I can see so many uses of the FileManager. Like if you have daily reports that you're letting the user manage, we actually use something like this in our report server where you host reports. But any type of OneDrive or Google Drive type applications where you're showing things to the user, and it doesn't even need to be files like you were saying. It can be any type of data source that can be visualized like this. This is a great UI.
Yeah, blob storage on Azure, all of those things. You might need to wrap a little interface around it just so it maps the data correctly to a file explorer type of behavior, but yeah, pretty much any data that can be represented in a hierarchy and has kind of a detail view to it can be represented as a file, and it's really flexible, and it's up to you how you want to utilize it.
Indeed. And I know our folks are in the back rooms answering these questions, so many of them may have been answered, but I'm picking the ones that maybe are worth talking through. So Sailesh Palapothu was asking about what can we do for UI designers, and we have been at this for a while, trying to bridge that developer designer gap. And Sailesh was also asking about like Figma kits. And do you want to mention a little bit about Unite UX and how things are shaping up?
Sure. So we do have Figma kits for everything in our UI components for the web. And then we also have a new product that is still in the works called Unite UX. You see by the little tag on that screen. I know it went through fast, but it did say beta. So we're still beta testing this, but what's really neat about Unite UX is it kind of bridges the gap between those Figma kits and the developer even further. And what you can do is kind of do some compare and contrast type of things, where you can pull up the designer's ideal kind of image of that component, and then the coded version of it and how it's being rendered in the browser. And you can overlay those two things on top of each other and look for discrepancies. So you can make your designs pixel perfect and match what the designer asked for using CSS code. So that's a really interesting tool that we're working on and we're looking for feedback on. So make sure you check that out. If you're
and talk to us like you Ed was saying. I think a lot of folks, if you're new to the DevCraft family, like you understand what is Telerik, or maybe you're trying to wrap your minds around what is Kenda UI. So Kenda UI is for all things JavaScript, and some of the Figma kits, I think somebody else was talking about in the chat room, are geared towards Kenda UI because they're web components, but they're JavaScript. If you have a design system that you are building up from scratch, or if you want to borrow from Material or any other design system, you can start maybe with the theme builder that we have had. But Ed, maybe we need to talk more about as a team how to bring some of this stuff to .NET and Blazor as well.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah. If you go to the Unite UX tab on the main page of Telerik.com, you can also find all of our Figma kits there, or you can go to Figma.com/progress. You'll find them there as well. You can jump in and start customizing themes with our Figma kits. There's so many ways to customize components these days. It's a little bit mind-boggling. So you can actually go in here as well, and inside of demos.telerik.com, and you can modify the component appearance through properties as well. So you could take this button, for example, and just change it to a different theme right here through the theme color property. You can even make that button let's see, large. We can take that, full mode, full. There we go. So you can make it rounded on the edges. So you can take that button and make it round, more oval shape. So you can modify these quite easily. You can go straight square. There's some built-in stuff here. You can also customize these as well. So you can, in Telerik UI for Blazor, these theme colors map to a string, which you can then write custom CSS code for and totally customize these things. Very simple in an elegant way.
Yeah, yeah. Now I'm going to talk about this more as well with .NET MAUI, but John Staub was talking about how the release cadence works, particularly for Blazor. Like we have had 3.3.0, and then there's 3.4.0. Is R2 somewhere in the middle? Because like Blazor releases more often than our major releases.
I missed that last part. So
okay, so I mean, what's the release cadence of Blazor right now, like for our controls?
Oh, for our components, that's the part I wasn't quite clear on. So I think we're shipping a release about every month. So we do have intermediate releases between the major releases that you see, the webinars and that type of content come for. So that's one thing to make note of when you're on the demos overview page here. So you often see these little green new icons and updated icons. There aren't quite as many of them as new things that I mentioned. That's because there were intermediate releases between the two major releases where these new icons showed up. And then there was another small release, and we took those icons away and added new stuff again. So you'll see a lot of things covered in the webinar on many components here that don't show this new badge on them because there was a smaller release in the middle.
Yeah, indeed. Now we can keep talking more and more about Blazor, but I also have a lot of things to talk through with mobile and desktop. So why don't we switch gears, Ed? You can keep answering some questions, in the chat window if you want, or we can circle back to them towards the end. But let's like anything else, Ed, that you wanted to mention on the website of things?
No, I think we covered it pretty good. Sam, I'm going to go ahead and give you the floor because I know people are excited to hear about MAUI and all of the desktop stuff that you've been working on and our team's been building for. So let's get into it.
Let's talk about all of that. I think you can see my screen. Yep. So let's switch gears. So web is good, and Ed and team would like you to think that web is ubiquitous. Web is how you build all your apps, and that's fine. You still can. And actually, a lot of things that Ed talked about with Blazor, you can now bring it over to mobile or desktop, which is nice. But let's talk about native apps and how you go about your business, because a lot of enterprises do depend on native apps on phones and tablets, and then also desktop workflows. So let's get in here. But I think we got a small question here for you folks. To make sure you're all awake. Quick interactive poll here. Let's get into cross-platform strategies, right? So we are going to talk about .NET MAUI. But if you have heard about it, what do you want to use it for? There are 4 major platforms that .NET MAUI supports, in addition to iOS or Android, which is mobile. Now we have desktop, which is Windows and Mac. It also actually supports Tizen coming from Samsung as well. But primarily, mobile or desktop, which one are you targeting? And we'll talk about Xamarin a little bit as well, talk about some more cross-platform options, but just looking at .NET MAUI, and I'll talk about the timelines and where things are at this point. But given what you have heard, given what you're building, which one do you think you're going to build first for? So going once, twice, and let's see your answers. I am actually very curious about this. Oh, look at that. It is a split. And this is actually exactly the point that Microsoft and we are actually trying to make. So this is really good to see. So many of you choose Windows, and Android being a close second, and iOS isn't all that far back. So this is really good to see. Let's talk about why this thing is important, right? So let's see, where's my mouse? Okay, so .NET MAUI is upon us. It is multi-platform app UI. The P is conveniently silent because MAUI sounds so much better than MAUI, but it is MAUI. It is, if you look at it from where we started, this was March of 2021 when .NET MAUI first started out. The journey, the team has been, trying to build that out at Microsoft a little prior to that, but the official previews started March of last year, and we have had 14 previews before now switching to release candidates. So RC, that's a big milestone. So it's about to go general availability GA very soon. They haven't mentioned exact dates yet, but most people can do the math and try to figure out when it's coming. But May is the month when .NET MAUI is shipping. So why is this a big deal? Because it is not just an evolution from a mobile first standpoint. Like a lot of you were saying in the poll, it is desktop first as well. So we have very strong support for going to Windows through WinUI 3, which we'll talk about WinUI separately, also going to Mac through Mac Catalyst, but iOS or Android are given. We can also go to Tizen, but this is the evolution of cross-platform .NET Dev, right? So from a single project now, you can target all of these mobile and desktop platforms. There's nothing holding you back in terms of APIs, in terms of going out of the sandbox and doing things on desktop. So really, really compelling story. And we have been on this journey with Microsoft, and it's good to see the light at the end of the tunnel this month. So where do we stand? Also with .NET MAUI, everything that Ed talked about, and not just Blazor. Let's say you're doing Angular or React as well. Some of that is also welcome. Blazor is particularly welcome with .NET MAUI because Blazor and .NET MAUI have the exact same runtime, that is .NET 6. That's going to be .NET 7 moving forward. So all of your web stuff now starts working nicely inside of mobile or desktop apps. And that's a really good story because a lot of you may be having teams that are building web apps and you want some of that goodness to come over to native apps. Now you can, because .NET MAUI has a really nice web view component that knows exactly which platform that you're rendering it on and renders the corresponding web view for Chrome or Safari or whichever platform that it fits. So this is a really good story, and all of your web stuff can feel very welcome, and you have all of the API access to do very native things on mobile or on desktop. So Blazor Hybrid is also ready to go. So we have been on this journey. Telerik UI for .NET MAUI. It's a brand new suite. It's been in preview for over a year now. We are almost ready. So .NET MAUI is about to hit GA, and our numbering could not have lined up better. If you look at where things are, we are at .NET MAUI RC3. So we had 3 release candidate builds. So we had our 0.80 release that went with RC2, 0.90, which is what I'm going to show you today. That is the one that goes with RC3. And coming up next is 1.0 for us, which guess what? Goes with GA, right? So we are getting ready. Everyone's excited, and this is happening right now. So Telerik UI for MAUI is almost ready. What's in it? So again, we have been working on this. It's a polished UI suite. But for the first time, you have an app suite from us, which is catered to both mobile and desktop. And that is a big deal because we are trying to be very conscious of how we render some of the controls and some of the UI. Some of them make sense on mobile, some make sense on desktop, maybe not both ways. And we have to be conscious of where we are rendering things and how we are doing it. So we are pretty excited about this. A couple of new things, and again, just like Blazor, we have a cadence with .NET MAUI that is way faster than our major releases, right? So like I said, R1 was January, R2 is in May. In between, .NET MAUI has been shipping pretty much at 3 to 4 week time frame for each of the previews and the releases or the RC candidates. And right after Microsoft comes out, we have almost day 0 support with our suite, and so we have had like 4 or so releases between R1 and now. A couple of big enhancements, and we have actually redone some of these things, again, trying to be conscious of where .NET MAUI's strengths lie in trying to optimize things for both desktop and mobile. We have a brand new date time picker, which is really nice. Infinite scrolling lets you pick. But also we have redone a lot of our pickers. We have lots of pickers. We have a date picker, time span picker. We have a list picker and then a completely templated picker. So think about anything that you're letting your users pick. Now these pickers have to have a different UX on mobile as compared to desktop, right? So we have done all of that nuanced rendering, so we know exactly where you're rendering, and also we are trying to utilize the native things that come with .NET MAUI, which is handler architecture. So we are moving away from what was called Xamarin Forms renderers onto .NET MAUI handlers, which makes things a little bit more generic, interface driven, and we can open it up to other types of, let's say you want to build your app with just C# or just XAML. Now you have choices, and you can still use the same handlers. So our team has been super busy, and we are really excited to see enterprise folks picking up .NET MAUI, building apps for mobile, building apps for desktop. So the numeric input control is also completely redesigned. And again, I have a screenshot here that shows you how it looks different on iOS compared to Windows. It's a drop down versus a kind of a modal window. So everything is a little different. Entry, we do have a masked entry, which is for all of your, social security numbers, all of your regular expressions that are, the heavy hitting ones. But the entry field is also, if you have simple things like a password where you just want to mask it away, you can do that. So the entry field is also, redone. We have a new badge view, which is, for you to show any type of, text and some notifications to the user, anything that kind of gets your attention quickly. The badge view is here to for all of your needs across mobile or desktop. So really busy few set of months, and we are happy to be here. We are also getting ready to ship a whole bunch of demo apps. Some of them are already out. You can play around with them. I will show you our control sample gallery, but we are also building a crypto app, and all of these we want to put out on the GitHub repo, so you can look through the source code of exactly how we are building it. I do a newsletter type thing every Monday for .NET MAUI news. I'm trying to make that an app as well. So this is ready. This is happening, and there's lots of sample code. The community and the ecosystem is stepping up big time with .NET MAUI. So I will show you demos of .NET MAUI in just a second. But let's talk about Xamarin. You might be building apps with Xamarin today, and while there is a lot of excitement about .NET MAUI, let's not forget, like, this is the reality. This is the production reality, and we have been on this journey for 7-8 years now with building apps with Xamarin that are cross-platform. That's not going away anywhere. If you look at where we are with Telerik UI for Xamarin, it's a mature suite, and it is mobile first, yes, but it also works in other platforms. So you get lots of engineering, like 5, 6, 7 years of engineering into this. Very, very performant controls, works seamlessly across Windows or Mac, whichever Visual Studio you want to use. We get you great starting templates to kind of help you out. Toolbox controls, so you can drag and drop. Easy to bring things in with NuGet, and lots of demo apps that you can play around in the store. If you are building Xamarin apps today, be at peace. Your house is not on fire. In fact, Microsoft has said, the last major release of Xamarin was November of last year, so you will have at least 2 to 3 years of support and more from us. So you are in good shape, and it's actually relatively easy to move from Xamarin to .NET MAUI. So be happy where you are, and we are keeping on investing in Xamarin with more controls, as you'll see. So the big control in this release is a progress bar, and I love this because for a mobile user, it is so easy to lose interest in your app, and it's just like one click and you are uninstalling the app. So we have to keep the user engaged, and anytime we have a long-running process, we have to let them know that something is happening. Now, we have had what's called the busy indicator. You can indicate long-running processes, but this is a little bit more granular. So it is truly a progress bar, and it has a value that you can bind to whatever processes. If you can get the exact progress that you're showing across whatever is the work that you're doing, you can set min and max ranges. You can completely customize how that progress bar looks like. And in case it can show you steps in a wizard-like progress bar if you want. And in case you just don't know how much like a file download is taking, you can go into an indeterminate mode, which is where you just don't know how much progress you have made, and you're just showing some sort of a progress that's been made. So really excited with that. And lots of tweaks here and there. Ed mentioned a few things. So we have a set of libraries called document processing libraries, and that is a .NET standard. So everything we do there kind of benefits the entire Telerik and Gantt UI family, because it is a set of standards that we use to get to some of the core documents that enterprises need to handle things like spreadsheets, things like PDFs, and Word documents and mail merging. All of those workflows are driven by document processing. So a lot of the enhancements that you see will benefit Xamarin and .NET MAUI and WinUI and WPF and Blazor. So it's all over. So we have put in some love with how you share and save PDFs. Some of it utilizes the platform functionalities. For PDF processing, there are a couple of interesting enhancements here. When you talk about fonts, and that's kind of what drives the fidelity that we expect from a PDF, there are some choices you can make. One is if you're using something like a Type 3 font that is kind of maybe a slightly older school, you definitely do want to embed, because otherwise you will not have that kind of fidelity. But for any modern font, maybe you have a choice, and the choice kind of dictates the size of the PDF document that you're managing. So now we give you a choice of whether to embed the fonts in the PDF document or not, and there's a size variation if you do and you don't. Spreadsheet processing gets support for comments. When you're working with an Excel spreadsheet, maybe in a team setup, you want to leave comments on every cell, and you want to maybe have threaded comments. We got all of that, right? Data grid, this is a very popular component, obviously, in the Xamarin Suite, and this was highly requested for the rows to have, a variable height. So now we have a, row height property. So a lot of little things we are doing all across Xamarin, fixing bugs and making sure we are keeping on investing in Xamarin, because there are people like you building apps right now with Xamarin, and maybe you're looking ahead at .NET MAUI, but this is your present production reality. All right, so speaking of Xamarin and real life apps that you can look around, maybe you want to see how we are building some apps with our own UI. We love dogfooding our stuff, like Ed showed you a few things on the Blazor side, where we'll use some components into a bigger demo, and that's how we build things up. So we have actually built up 4 or 5 apps that are out in the store, so you don't need to get anything from us, be it on iOS, Android. Go out to the app stores and look for Telerik, and you can find these apps. You can download the source code. They're all open source on GitHub, so you can play around. Maybe you want to see how we do MVVM type design patterns. Maybe you want to see how we utilize Azure with some of our backend processing and the Telerik UI in the front end. So there's plenty of inspiration to look at. All right, let's look at some mobile stuff. Ed, any questions really quick that I can help answer?
So can you help clarify just a little bit, Sam? What's the difference between Xamarin and MAUI?
Oh boy. Okay, so let's start with Xamarin. So Xamarin has been around for the early days was like Mono Touch, Mono Droid, and then Xamarin came along, and then Xamarin Forms came along. So Xamarin is fundamentally the way to write C# cross-platform. So we started with what was called Xamarin Android, or iOS, where we started writing the business logic in C#, and that was shared across platforms. So you still have to write the heads separately, the UI heads. Then came along Xamarin Forms, which said, okay, as a .NET developer, maybe you don't need to know so much more about iOS or Android. Maybe we can give you an abstraction. So Xamarin Forms is an abstraction where the UI stack is kind of shared, but you do have to know a little bit about how the native stack works in case you want to customize things. But for the most part, you're writing XAML and C# and you're running it across different platforms. Xamarin Forms, as it stands right now, it's great, but there are some pain points in the way we, certainly bigger projects get a little bit, cumbersome to handle sometimes with all the dependencies, and how we have projects that are built for iOS, for Android, for Windows from separate different projects. So .NET MAUI is trying to solve all of that, and at the same time give you more confidence going to desktop, because there are ways in which you can take Xamarin to desktop, but it wasn't official. Now you can take .NET MAUI, which is exactly the same tech as Xamarin Forms, C# and XAML, but it kind of expands on this. Now you can go to Mac, go to Windows with much more confidence, and it also opens it up architecturally to do other things. Like we have the .NET Handler architecture in .NET MAUI. What that does is, if you want to write your apps entirely in C#, you could. If you want to not do MVVM, if you want to do MVU, which is model view update, which is what Blazor and the web folks love, you can do that utilizing the same architecture. So you're rendering the same components, but just coming at it very differently. So for all things .NET MAUI, I want to point you folks to, if I can type, to the docs. And this is something the .NET MAUI team has been working really hard on. they have moved over most of the things that apply from Xamarin and WinForms, but ideally or essentially it's an abstraction. It's a framework that lets you reach iOS, Android, Windows, and Mac. And look through the docs on how you get the fundamentals, how you get native platform API access, what does the app lifecycle look like, and how do you render things differently between desktop and web, and how do you customize. So hopefully that answers at the basic level, Ed. Okay,
I think that covered it good, Sam.
All right, so let's talk more about this. So like I said, we have been on this journey, and by the way, before we go into specifics, I want to point you to this blog post that Stefan wrote. So this is all of our desktop and mobile tooling and everything that was new in this release. So everything that I'm talking about today, .NET MAUI, WinUI, Xamarin WPF, WinForms, document processing libraries, they're all documented right here. So dive into the thing that appeals to you the most, or the one that you're using. But look around for some of the other ones. It might click, and you might consider using something else that's part of DevCraft. So let's talk about .NET MAUI first. So if I go into mobile components, you will see that we have two, Xamarin and .NET MAUI. So for both of them, you can just take a look at what we have. And again, we have been very conscious of realizing that now it's mobile and desktop. So we have been building up very carefully. For every one of these things, you can just hit the try now button, download button. That's going to give you all the bits and some of the demo apps. Or if you already have DevCraft, if you already have a subscription, go into your downloads directory, and then you can find it there. Once you do get the bits, or maybe you just want to pull it through NuGet, that's fine too. So don't be like me on .NET MAUI, because I'm showing you things on a Mac. They work so much better on Windows because you have Visual Studio tooling. In terms of tooling, Visual Studio 2022 17.3 preview 1 is where the latest is in terms of Windows, and that has all of the MAUI templates. In terms of Mac support, VS for Mac is coming along a little bit slower because they had to do a full reboot of how VS for Mac works. So that support for .NET MAUI will stay in preview a little bit, but things work. Things work pretty well. So let me show you where things are. So if I installed .NET MAUI, I keep stuff in my progress directory. You can see the whole journey, like .NET MAUI 0.0.1, this was last March, all the way till 09.0. This is the one that works with RC3, which is the latest bits. So in here, if you look at the things that we throw in, we give you all the binaries and we give you examples. This is where you'll find our SDK, or the control sample gallery, and also the crypto tracker app. So let's actually look into some of these things. I am going to open this up in my in Finder. Let's look at terminal. I'm showing you command line stuff here first, but it's so much easier to do this on Visual Studio. But just know that it all works command line as well. You can do command line on on Windows as well. So first thing is, if I look at my .NET version, I am running on 6.0.300. That's the latest. This is the SDK version, not the .NET version. So in here now, being in the folder, I can fire off, let's say, a Mac Catalyst build. So I'm doing a .NET build. I haven't actually opened the project yet, but I just want to see a build, and I want to see it work on Mac Catalyst, right? And I can run the same exact app from, the same exact code base on Windows or on iOS or Android, which is really nice. So we'll give it a second for the desktop app here to pop up, which right here it is. So now it's a native Mac desktop application, and all of our UI is right here. So the datetime picker is new, so take a look at that. And if I just do the getting started, you can see how this one is a drop-down, right? Because we are on desktop. So this will be a slightly different experience on mobile because it's touch-friendly, it's bigger, it's modal. So again, we are conscious of how things are. Other things that are new, all of your beloved charts and graphs, they're already there. So most of the heavy hitting, it's already done for you. These are rendered again carefully on iOS or Android versus desktop. So we have all the charts and graphs. We have a data grid right here, which is again, a lot of enterprises are now looking at .NET MAUI as the evolution of your desktop strategy, and that's perfectly legit because there is nothing stopping you from accessing all the Windows or Mac APIs right here from .NET MAUI. This is just a simple grid, but again, it's a grid on steroids. As you know, it does virtualization, it does filtering, sorting, grouping, all the good stuff. So this is the app. It's just a simple app to show you all of the controls in one place, which you ideally wouldn't want all in one page, but it works. And if I can show you what the changes are, since Ed asked about, just the basics of .NET MAUI. When you open up a .NET MAUI project, that's when you see some of the things that are really different. So I'm opening this up in VS Code, and right out of the gate, you'll notice that as compared to Xamarin Forms, we don't have multiple platforms, or the platform projects are not different projects. Now they're just folders, right? So I have Android, iOS, Mac, Windows. I might also have Tizen if I wanted to. So all of your platform-specific things stay in a folder. And if you look at the CS proj here, now this is a multi-targeted .NET project. So it's just target frameworks, and I can choose which frameworks that I want to run on, iOS, Android, Mac Catalyst, and so on. It's just much more simpler. And also, this one probably has a little bit of cleanup that we are doing ourselves, but in here are some shared resources, some fonts, some images, splash screens, icons. Those can also be shared. There is automatic, image resizing based on iOS or Android or Windows, wherever you want to go. So there's a lot of help right out of the gate. And take a look at some of these examples that we have put together. All of them are kind of nicely broken out into different controls, and we are using a simple MVVM type design pattern without actually going into an MVVM framework. So if you want a little bit of inspiration, here it is. So that's the SDK app, but let me go up one level here, and let's go into the crypto tracker. And again, our teams are looking at this and probably wondering, why is Sam on a Mac? Because it works, and it's just the experience is so much better on Windows, but it works on a Mac as well. So let's show you one more app here. And this one's a Mac Catalyst app as well, or the build is a Mac Catalyst build as well. We just want to give you as many examples to look at if possible. So this one's a crypto app. If you are into crypto, this one's obviously, a demo app, doesn't have any real data for tracking, but here's a crypto tracker. And, you can choose whichever one you want to, look into and look at, trends across month, day, week, and so on. You can see like different types of charts and graphs we use. So again, the point is, like, given the surface area that you have, you might want to, cater your app differently. Maybe on iPad, maybe on desktop, you want to have an interface like this. But if I look at the same app on an iPhone or an iPad or an Android device, excuse me, maybe you want to have like a hamburger menu where you have more of a master detail page. So it really kind of opens it up so you can build for mobile or desktop together. Okay, so keep an eye out on what's coming up here on the .NET MAUI frontier, because Microsoft is getting really close to shipping this out. It is going to happen this month. They have at least said so publicly. So we are going to have like day zero support for you once .NET MAUI is out. So we are very, very excited about that.
So Sam, okay, you were going off like a ninja in the command line there. If somebody wanted to see the documentation for the things you're working on, should they be in the MS Docs or R Docs? What's the best place to go?
Both ways. Start with the MS Docs if you want to, learn about what is .NET MAUI, how do I use stuff, and then anytime you switch over to using our stuff, head to our docs. Installation-wise, like we'll talk about how to get stuff on Windows. And what is nice is if you are on Windows, you get extra templates, so we can throw in our Telerik bits in, included in your .NET MAUI app, so you don't have to, bring it in through a NuGet package at all. It's just all there. We have Visual Studio extensions that will do stuff for you. So, start with the .NET MAUI docs and look into our stuff for anything, specific to our controls. Like, how do I data bind to a, let's say, a data grid? So that's the kind of thing you want to come and look at our stuff for. Let's say just, getting started. Here's some basic controls of how you render a grid, how you maybe, bring some data over from, your view models. It's all here, and you can, kind of start from here. Okay, so let's switch gears and look at Xamarin real quick. So if you are looking at Xamarin here, let me close these things out and let's take you over to Xamarin land. So again, same components, mobile and Xamarin. I'm watching my time here. I got half an hour, which is good. Okay, so this is a much more matured suite, because obviously we've been working on this for quite some time now. And things work for Xamarin Android, things work for Xamarin iOS, and of course for Xamarin Forms, which is where most of you are, trying to write an abstracted UI that works across, different frameworks. And we keep on investing and pouring in love on this. So what I'm trying to show you here is an app that we actually have in the stores. So You don't need to install anything on your Windows, Android, or iOS device. Go to the store and search for Telerik. You're going to find this app. I'm showing you the code here that drives it. It is a big code base, but it has almost all of our UI in it. So let's go ahead and run this, or start off the build, and then we'll talk through what it is. So this is a Xamarin app, and I am on Visual Studio for Mac, and I'm opening this up and I'm firing it off on iOS, so it knows how to go talk to Xcode, get the app package, and come back. This one has all of our UI. We are not using any MVC framework, but it's a nice, clean code base. We have behaviors, we have our analytics and controls and converters all separated out. So the views are actually pretty lightweight. And then we have, view models and, data to drive some of the UI. And you can run this app on Android and Windows and other things. This one here, I only have the iOS one, but I can run this on Windows. I can run this on Android from the same, code base. This is a cold start. So as compared to Ed, just right-clicking and bring up a REPL, we have a little bit more drama because we are native. We are, on the metal, as they say. And you can run this on a simulator. iOS, Android simulators are fine to get started. You can also run this on your physical devices. You can just plug into Visual Studio and you can fire away a build. You can actually do things like hot reload and hot restart fairly good on devices as well. So every time you change a little piece of UI, you don't have to restart the whole app. You can actually do that while your app is running. So it's fairly great.
That was actually a question that was being asked as you're giving that response. So having a REPL for MAUI would be a level of complexity probably way beyond what it takes to do Blazor in the REPL. Because you don't want that. You honestly don't want that, because you will be mimicking something that is native and trying to make it like we can throw a web view, but it's not real then. It's not rendering the native components. Yeah.
All right, so here's the app, and again, like I said, this is the same app that you can download from the store. So I'm just running it from Visual Studio. And look, Ed, we have dark mode here as well. We like dark mode as well on mobile devices. But sticking to light mode, here's the progress bar. So let's look at the first look here. If I hit this button, classic use case of you doing something and showing progress over a percentage, and it'll eventually finish and say I'm done. So that's just a kind of basic look at it, but you can actually configure this to your heart's content. So I can choose what the tracking color is, which is the color behind there. I can make it, green, because why not? I can make the text bigger or smaller, and I can change what the value is. Animation, I can change the percentage mode. I can change the text color to yellow, which might make it actually harder to read, but you get the idea. You can customize all the things. And for instance, if you do not know exactly how much progress you're making, you can switch into this indeterminate mode, in which case, let me actually tap on this. Now you can see it kind of go left and right, but it actually doesn't show the percentage because you don't know exactly how much progress you're making. So, that's the progress bar. It's new, and it's for all of your long-running processes. You have it right there. And again, look through this app, because all of the things that I talked about, barcodes, badge views, we have like a dozen different types of busy indicators that you should look into. Calendars and scheduling, this is really hard to do for native iOS or Android apps. All types of charts and graphs, they're all there. Data grids are right there. Data forms, super popular. Oh, and one thing I should show you, if you look at the data grid examples, let's say I look at like a theming example. This is kind of a standard grid, which has, the grouping and sorting, all of that done. One big request from our feedback portal was we wanted control over the row height. So now we actually do have an exposed property. And I think this one demo here, the data sources, just pointing to a data table. This one has much more of a row height, which, eventually we can open it up for the user or for you to set it programmatically, which you can do right now, but that row height thing is new. But also going down in this list, you will see there are things that are relating to our document processing libraries, things like PDF viewers and spreadsheet processing. So if I go into the PDF viewer, there's a whole now workflow on how you save off a PDF on iOS or Android or other platforms, and also how you share it, and we maintain all the fidelity and how you do it. So that's really nice to look through some of the code. And if I show you one more thing here, let's say the spread processing. This one inherits some of the things that document processing libraries have done. So if I look at conditional formatting, this one's going to be a little hard to show because I don't actually have Excel or the Office suite of products installed on my iOS simulator. I do have it on my iOS phone, so it's a little harder to show, but I'll show you this on desktop. But then other things like adding comments. So given a certain cell, I can add whatever comments I want, and then that is going to be inserted into my spreadsheet. And then if I open up that spreadsheet, it's again harder to see without like true Excel, because like iOS just does a visual of it. But if you open this up on any desktop, you can actually see the comments saved, and the comments can also be threaded, which is really nice. So it's hard to see because it's really small, but you can export this out to an email or to desktop, and you get to see it all. So again, take a look at all the things that we do with Xamarin, and this is near and dear to our heart. We have been at this for 5-6 years now. So really mature suite, and we give you all the code so you can see how we are doing stuff. Here is the code, and if you look at the examples, that's where everything is. So all of the controls are nicely broken out. If I look at the progress bar, the first look view, that's the progress bar. That's XAML that I'm talking about, and this is what Ed and the web folks don't like seeing, but it's not that hard to write XAML. It is almost like XML, almost like HTML as well. But this is the rad linear progress bar with all the properties that you can set, and all the animations and durations. You can do all of that. And back in the data grid demo, this was the one thing I want to show you, the row height. That's a new property, and that really makes it nice for you to control exactly the row height for every one of your grids. Okay, all right, so that's it about .NET MAUI and Xamarin. I got 20 minutes more. Let's switch gears to desktop. But Ed, any questions on mobile front that I can answer?
There was not a specific question to mobile, but there was one about are we going to release any MAUI training videos? And while I don't want to answer directly on that because I'm not in the know on that, feel free to answer if you have something, Sam. But can you talk a little bit about Code It Live, what you've been doing there?
Yeah. So we have a whole thing on Twitch called Code It Live. It's our channel where you can see Ed and me and some of our teammates code and fail a lot, but it's on Twitch. It's informal. So if you have time, come and join us on most Thursdays. I do .NET. Ed does Blazor on Wednesdays. So we build a lot of the demo apps that you see pretty much live on screen. And you can see us falter through everything, but that's part of the dev experience. And if you want video content, there's a lot from Microsoft. There are lots of conferences. Conference circuits are feeling coming back on. Hopefully we are at the trail end of the pandemic. We are, in fact, a lot of the .NET MAUI team and us will be at a conference called Techorama coming up next week in Belgium. But anywhere in the Americas, anywhere in Europe, you're starting to see a lot more conferences come up. There is no dearth of YouTube videos, that Ed or me have done speaking about .NET MAUI or Blazor Hybrid that you can go check out. So go to YouTube and then the Telerik channel, the Candy UI channel, you can see a lot of videos from us.
Yeah. I know we have Telerik UI training videos for many of our other products, so I know it's something we'll be considering and taking feedback on. I personally don't have a timeline on anything like that. So
All right.
Doesn't mean it's not happening. It means I don't know anything yet.
Right. And we like for customers, we do have dedicated training resources, and then videos are part of that. So definitely look into your Telerik subscription and see what you have access to, or if you are really wanting something that you don't see, talk to us, ping us, and we would love to help out. Okay, let's switch gears to desktop, and here's my Parallels desktop. I do have Windows running a couple different ways, but this one's virtual, and I can take my laptop and I go with it, so it's just nice. So there are a lot of things on desktop, and the good thing is I don't even actually have to open up code, because like all of these demos are apps that I can just get from the app stores. So here I can show you really quick. If I go to the Microsoft Store, this is the Windows Store, but you'll have the similar experience on iOS or Android stores. Do a search on, let's see, Telerik, which, as you can see, I've done before. So all of the demo apps that I showed you or talked about, they're all right here, including WinForms and WPF apps, because those are standard Win32 apps, but they are also welcome on the Microsoft Store. So that's CRM app, To-Do app, ERP apps right there. That's our UWP app, Universal Windows Platform. That is WPF, and that is WinForms. So you don't have to install anything unless you are ready for it. Just play around with the apps. Look at some of the UI and the code that we use to fire up some of the UI. That's also baked in the app. Bless you, Ed. Ed's a little bit under the weather, so I hope you feel better, my friend, quickly. Okay, so let's start with WinUI. Okay, how about that? So if I launch the WinUI demo app, and this is the one that you get when you install WinUI, let me show you exactly where you get to it. So right here, I have program files, progress, that's where I keep my stuff. Telerik UI for WinUI actually hit 2.0. And actually, you know what? I'm just realizing I have skipped over some slides. So let me go back to because then I want to set the stage before I actually show you the demos. So where did we stop? We stopped right here. We did have one more question about your cross-platform strategies in general. So can we do that really quick, please? Yeah. So looking ahead at the next 12 months, you have had Xamarin, you have had a look at .NET MAUI. What exactly are you doing? Are you ready to jump? Or are you sticking with Xamarin for now? Or is it something completely different for your cross-platform strategy? Are you doing something web? So tell us what you're looking at. And again, I expect you to be kind of split, and that's fine because that's the reality for enterprises. All right, so going once, going twice, and let's see your answers. Okay, I don't have a cross-platform dev plan. That is interesting. That's where most of you are, and that's fine. That's fine. But maybe going forward, if you are doing Blazor, maybe look into bringing it over to native or desktop. If you are doing .NET MAUI just for mobile, maybe consider moving it to desktop, because now you have the same code bases that can power cross-platform apps. So that's good to know. And some of you are looking into .NET MAUI, which is exciting. Okay, so let's switch gears to desktop, right? And we have one more question because the WinUI team wanted to ask what you are doing with WinUI, because that is the latest Windows stack. So do you plan on using WinUI for desktop development right now? I mean, are you sticking with WPF or WinForms, because those are actually fine as well? Or are you ready to jump ship to something, latest and greatest from Microsoft? So let's see where you're at. Or are you, not doing desktop development at all? That's fine. You're more like, the cool web developer that Ed and his set of folks are. That's fine too. But again, if you're a web developer, now you can bring things over to desktop. Okay, so going once, twice, and let's see your answers. We are rushing a little bit because I'm watching my time here. Oh, look at that. You don't have plans to use WinUI. Maybe you should. Look, maybe let me try convincing you that WinUI is really, really cool. That is exactly what .NET MAUI is actually using to reach Windows. It is the latest Windows stack. So yeah, that's fine if you don't do desktop, but all I'm saying is if you are doing anything web, consider that now you can very easily bring it over to desktop, because .NET MAUI just gives you a shell, and you can run your web app just like that inside of a desktop container, and you get all of the native API access, which is really nice. Let's talk about WinUI. Like I said, this has been a journey because it has been another reboot, yes, but done well. If you look at WinUI 3 and where it stands, it is meant to work both for Windows Store UWP apps as well as Win32 apps, and we'll talk about WinForms and WPF in a second, but this has taken us a lot of engineering to get to 2.0. This is a major release for us because Windows App SDK is now at 1.03, and it is the newest desktop suite, but it's in no way lacking because we have put in so much of effort in the last 2 years. So all of the things that you expect from us, MVVM support, accessibility, localization, everything is done, and the control gallery has just about every control you can think of. and we do things with the Fluent design system, which is the the design system that WinUI uses. So we have all the things that you might potentially need for a WinUI greenfield development, all the data grids, the charts, the list viewers, the schedulers. I really love our ribbon view because that is like so classic Windows, and it's really difficult to make by hand. And it's taking us, a long time to pull it off, but engineering support with, DPL across all of the UI components. So it's a very, very, full-featured UI suite at this point. But we keep adding more things to it. And this release, we have a brand new PDF viewer, which again, if you're handling PDFs, you don't want to switch, context switch for your user. You wanted them to be able to see their PDFs, work with your PDFs right inside your app itself. So you have a PDF viewer with a built-in toolbar, and it does all the things that you expect from our PDF viewer. You can pinch and zoom, pan around, select text, really smooth scrolling, because you can, load up a gigantic PDF document. We are, careful as to how we render things. So we are virtualizing it, and, we offer you different fonts you want to embed or maybe not embed, and you can extend the PDF viewer itself. So really nice control. We have a brand new tab control. This is, again, for you to organize your apps, right? So all of the content of your app, however you want to have navigation and organization, tabbing is a very, very popular, UI and UX paradigm. So we want to double down on that. So all the things you expect, built-in close and pin buttons, you can reorder things, you can drag. And if you can, have things overflow, there's a multiple line tabs you can do, or there's, an overflow area with a, second menu. You can data bind things, and we have this completely be data driven and dynamically generated if you want, completely customizable, supporting of all the themes. So really cool control. We have a heat map control. This is new, and we have like tree views, but this is kind of for you to display a lot of numeric data, maybe a little hierarchical data in a matrix-like format. So X and Y axis, and it lets your users, if you colorize things correctly, you're trying to show the density of data, and it's really easy to kind of visualize as a user if you use the right type of colorization and categorization to see exactly where your data is, and tooltip support, so your user knows exactly where what is, and your really customizable headers and styling APIs. Really polished control. So the heat map is in. We have support or enhanced our chart view control a little bit. We have had the polar series controls, which had the major ticks, and now we have minor tick support. And along with it comes, this is essentially more granularity, so you can show, the minor things as well, not just the major things in your range. But we also have a support core for stripes, which is kind of a visual way to see the minor ticks and where your data points lie. Again, like Ed said, the folks who do financial charts will, appreciate this and get much more value out of this than everyday developers who, don't maybe understand all the nuances of stripes and minor ticks, but it's there for you to use. Document processing updates, anything that you do with spread processing, PDF or Word, it's right there. We did like mail merge last time around. You can still do more searching, more filtering. Spread processing gets concatenation functions, threaded comments. PDF processing gets the choice of embedding fonts or not, and type 3 font support. That's all built in now. Now let's talk about WPF and WinForms. And I love this slide, Ed, because you mentioned web forms, right? WinForms is even older, and if you look at where WPF and WinForms, their journey has been, they started in .NET Framework, and they can now run on .NET Core 3.1, 5, 6, and even 7. Like this one is a little, advanced for me as well, because on .NET MAUI stuff, we are still on .NET 6 a little bit, but .NET 7 previews have been out. We're up to preview 3. I think maybe 4 is also out. And also with .NET 6, some of the enhancements was you have a version of .NET that runs on ARM 64 bits. You have hardware differences now. Visual Studio for Mac is starting to run on M1 chips. Now there are other devices like I think the Surface Pro, or there's a Samsung device that runs Windows on ARM. If you are doing so, you can now bring over your WinForms and WPF apps. So how cool is that? WinForms and WPF run just about everywhere, which is fascinating. So obviously we're investing into this because a lot of you are developing enterprise apps on WPF and on WinForms. Let's talk about WPF. A couple of new things here. We have a brand new virtual keyboard. This one is for the classic use case where you are running a heavy WPF app, but it's running on a kiosk, maybe at a station or a bank. and it's touch support, right? So it's a virtual keyboard that does all the things, predefined layouts. It's got the classic, like the keyboard clicking sound as well. It supports culture, and it supports, system synchronization, which means if the user changes their keyboard layout in Windows, we can honor that as well. So it's just a virtual keyboard exactly as you expect. There's a brand new theme because as much as maybe Ed loves Windows 11, people love the Windows 11 look and feel. So there's a brand new theme which has the classic rounded corners, and you can do it in both light and dark mode. If you're using like our window control, which is like a to spew off newer windows, it can actually have the nice the mic background effect, and again it syncs with any accent colors that you're using in Windows. So really nice new theme here. We have a thing called the virtual grid, which is kind of a grid but with a lighter footprint, and now it gets like custom cell template support, so you can render your data exactly as you want with conditional formatting. The chart view here gets ticks and stripes support as well. The grid gets a little bit of an update with zooming, and when you're filtering based on distinct values in a text box, now you don't have to look for it. It just like shows up in your autocomplete suggestions as well. Desktop alert, whenever you're doing like WPF type apps, maybe you want to alert the user that something is happening, new email, something happened, and it was a complicated thing to pull off because like most Windows users, like who are heavy-handed users, have multiple monitors, and if your app was running on a different monitor, the desktop alert always showed up on the main one, which you don't want. So now we can recognize which monitor your app is running on and show you the desktop right there. And again, Spreadsheet and other document processing libraries get the same set of updates as they do for WinUI and .NET MAUI and Xamarin. So one thing I do want to point out is I think our WPF team lead is on the call. I love how many sample apps we have. It is just so many, and they're so well done. I would love to maybe pull up a couple of these things, but ERP solutions, CRM, color theme generator, that is a great app for you to visualize all of our UI and change up the style, the theme, and see what's the impact and how do your controls look, and you can start from that style and make it your own. So lots and lots of demo apps to look at. Let's talk about WinForms, and I'm speaking a little fast towards the end. I'm trying to show you as many things. WinForms gets a new Office navigation bar. This is beautifully done for you again to customize how you want to organize your app and how you want your navigation to work out. It's got different view modes, normal, or it can be very compact. If you don't want to show the text and the image, you can do that. If you do have an overflow, you don't have enough real estate, you can have a menu option, and when you pop over or you mouse over, you see a nice pop-up that you can fill in with what you want. Design term support, localization, that's all built in. There is a brand new calculator, which, believe it or not, a lot of line of business apps would not want to have that context switch for the user. You want a calculator and the user to calculate something right in your app. Now you have it, and it is completely customizable. So yes, it does basic math and it does some complex algebra, but if you want to do your own calculator and have do calculations that make sense for your enterprise workflow, have at it. You can customize everything, and it's a really flexible API. It's got touch and keyboard support, and really easy to theme and style. We have again .NET 7 Preview 3 support, ARM64 support. There's a Visual Studio 2022 theme that we had last year, our last release, and now you can kind of blend colors, so you can really make it your own. A lot of folks who are building WinForms apps on .NET Core forward, you are looking at a new designer. This is different from the older designer, which was a .NET framework. So this was a big engineering effort for Microsoft and also for us. And we have full feature parity. Now the new designer works exactly the same way. It actually benefits from some newer things like inline editing and how we showed the snapping to the grid and so on. So it's really nice. High DPI support. This has again been a big investment area for WinForms, and now we totally can, how we scale things up and down. We can maintain the fidelity across all of our UI components. The barcode gets a little bit of a revamp. It can actually read barcodes now. And again, the same document processing updates. So a lot of love across all of these, desktop suites. Let me show you a little bit of that. So back on my Windows 10 machine, like I could show, I closed it. So I could go back in here. That's my WinUI 2.0. That's the one I was showing you. And in here, if I go look at the examples, this is the example solution app that I'm showing you. I can open this up on Visual Studio and hit F5, or I can just launch the app and show you, because the code is built into the app itself. So this is our WinUI sample gallery. It has all the things. Anything that's new is marked as new. Anything that's updated is marked as updated. So let's look at the heat map. It is a heat map that shows you numerical data, so you can see the densities. You can see, like, this is the Human Development Index, and you can tooltip, and you can see what's going on. And the code that we use is right there itself, so you don't actually have to open up Visual Studio. This one, again, based on my zooming, it's not letting me zoom. Can I zoom? Yeah, I think maybe you can. So you can zoom in and you can see how we are rendering our heat maps. It's right here, rad heat map. So all the properties are right there for you to do what you want. And there are different applications of this. You can visualize lots of different types of numerical data that's hierarchical and get a comparison really quickly on how things are shaping up. The PDF viewer is new. This one is looking at a gigantic PDF file and just opening it up. This toolbar is built in, so you can pan and zoom and select and do all the things. And to render this, just one line of code, rad PDF viewer, that's all. And you can point it to a certain document, or read from a stream. It's really nice. PDF processing. This one is the one that gives you the choice of embedding or not embedding the fonts in your PDF document. You can see the file size differences, which you can play around yourself a little bit. This tab control is new. This one here is that component that I talked about. It has pinning, it has close, and then you can reorder things, and it's a container control. You can put whatever you want inside of it. Spreadsheet processing, that will have, again, support for the newer comments here. And again, I'm watching my time here. I got 4 minutes left, but again, any comments that I put in here and I save the file and I export that file, I can open this up in Excel, and you can see the threaded comments saved with full fidelity. So that's WinUI. Let's take a quick look at WPF here. And again, I can open up Visual Studio and show you all of the code, but the demos are so nice to look at. And again, they're all from the stores. This is the new virtual keyboard, and it's a virtual keyboard, and it does touch, and you can actually maybe hear some of the clicking when I'm typing. And it is a full-on keyboard that will honor your accent styles and your culture. This is the Windows 11 theme. The moment I switch to that, you see how it kind of goes a little bit rounded, a little bit nicer and sharper and crisper. There's a Windows 11 dark mode as well, so it just makes everything dark mode. Makes it a little bit easier on the pixels and on your eyes. And again, lots of advancements and enhancements on virtual grid and chart view. This is the one that actually has the the minor ticks across the polar seas. If I can pull it up, let's look at. Let's see, the appearance, the ticks and stripes. So this one is showing you the stripes, and let's look at maybe the polar chart here. So now you can see like the minor ticks in between the major ones, and that's the major enhancements. In terms of API, this actually has a couple of breaking changes because we changed some properties. So take a look at that. Take a look at the documentation. We made sure everything was nicely spelled out. So that's WPF. And let's look at WinForms really quick as well. So we'll give it a second for this to load up as well. And there comes WinForms. Now, for every one of these things, you want to make sure that you're looking at R2 2022. That's the release we're talking about. This is the navigation bar, and it is so nice to be able to have a parent control that is tabbed and lets you reorder things. And it kind of like is Outlook inspired. Like as I hover over this, you can see like the little pop-up. You get to customize exactly what goes into the pop-up, right? And you can move around. If there's an overflow, you can see that menu that says, hey, I got more things that I cannot show you here. And this is the Visual Studio 2022 Lite theme. So you can, change up the themes and see how your controls look like. We have like probably 24 themes right here. This is the new calculator. Again, it is a calculator, but it does, a lot of fancy things, memory management, and it can be completely customized based on whatever your needs are. This is the new barcode editor. And it will support all of the barcodes that we know, all of the standards, as well as be able to read barcodes maybe from a QR code or something that you are rendering from a web page and you're wanting to read that into your WinForms app. You can do that as well. So that's about WinForms, and everything else gets an update. You can explore all the controls. You can check out the little banners that says this is updated, and so on. Again, PDF processing, spread processing get the same treatment from benefits from document processing libraries. And if you are still doing UWP, that's fine too. Let's see if I can find the that's WinUI. I think this is my this is the CRM app, but I wanted to find the UWP app. Let's pull that up as well. This is the universal platform, and again, this is open source, and all of the components are right there. This is kind of what is evolving into WinUI 3. So I, highly encourage you folks to take a look at WinUI 3 because that is the latest stack. And then, this was the CRM app. Again, I love how many sample apps we have across WPF and WinUI. Again, full-on, CRM application with all the charts and controls, and you can see the performance. We are pulling up a fair bit of, sample data, but the performance is, top-notch. So there's a lot of things to look at. Desktop is, very, very popular in 2022 because we are supporting cross-platform dev across Windows and Mac. And on Windows, you have so much of history, so many options, and on Mac, you have, .NET MAUI. So things are looking good for desktop development. And I know we are almost out of time here, but is there anything quick, Ed, that we can answer?
So somebody asked, what is the correct pronunciation of Telerik?
Mm-hmm. So, going back to some history, because you can, there's no right or wrong. We love saying Telerik. A lot of folks say Telerik. So, however you want to do it. So again, we will hopefully most of your Q&A in the control panels have been answered by the team. But if there is more, we would love to get back to you on the Twitter breadcrumb trail if you use the hashtag. But more than anything, thank you for spending an hour or two with us today. Hopefully you see our continuous efforts to make DevCraft more and more enticing, no matter what you're doing, be it web, be it mobile or desktop, or maybe you're considering cross-platform strategies where you're mixing and matching, because now you can share your code so much easier across Blazor, across .NET MAUI, across Xamarin, and everything runs on .NET 6. We are, heavily riding the bleeding edge technologies with .NET. You can see us supporting .NET 6 and the latest in Visual Studio with all the tooling, and as well as looking ahead at .NET 7 as well. So Ed, any thoughts from you? Any last thoughts?
I'm excited watching the releases of MAUI release candidate and .NET 7 because it's just going to mean there's more cool things coming from us in the future.
Indeed, indeed. And again, if you want to just come and hang out and see what we are up to, coding every week, then come and join us on Code It Live. You can see Ed and me do a bunch of .NET dev, and we do JavaScript as well. And we have really fun guests, and we do fun things as well. So it's kind of our way to stream whatever we are up to in a given week. But thank you so much, everyone, and a big thank you to all of our folks in the back channels who keep us going. And we stand on your shoulders for every release. So thank you for all that you do, and thank you all for using Telerik and Kendo UI bits. And we are hopeful that every release we are able to give you something to cheer and make you more productive for the apps that you're building. So we hope that you have a great rest of your day, and have fun, be productive, and take care.